Ah, here we go.
Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, visionaries. Welcome to Velen's Chosen. This week is episode 140, and we're here to buff your game yet again. Talk about your Hearthstone goals. We talk about the meta, talk about some arena sometimes. But this week, we're doing something a little bit different. We're not featuring a deck this week. And we're going to be talking about what's the play, what's the meta. So that means a little bit more later. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, we got a couple little tiny bits of news. And let's talk about our weeks in Hearthstone and the UHL recap from Eve's point of view. So let's meet our hosts. My name's Rob, coming from Japan, Yamaguchi Prefecture. And we also have Eve Martin from Canada. What's up, Eve?
I won!
Yes, she did. Game 3 or Game 5, doesn't matter. That's a dub.
W's a W.
We have
And next.
Grant, who didn't
Oh,
win
I get a
this week,
turn.
but he won in something, which is life.
I,
He's alive today.
I had a sweet game with Brigida today in Overwatch. That's what I won. That's what happened. So,
Got him.
almost gold medaled every single category. So that was fun. But yeah, I've been playing Hearthstone. For me, I've been playing like a casual. Been working on getting better at even Paladin and exploring the various faces that has. But I'm sitting at rank 7 in standard right now. So
Yeah, I'm at rank 8
I don't know if
myself.
yeah.
Well, let's explore that a little bit before we get in the news. Grant, you want to talk a little bit about your experience this week when you were playing with the even?
Yes. Well, actually, another thing I did is I did complete the monster hunt, so that was cool. I devoted a good amount of time
Nice.
last weekend and this weekend, and I'll be honest, I feel like beating Hagatha, I almost got it down to a science, like to where I knew if I was going to win or not. Because I wasn't sure if I was prepping this for the show or not, but I was actually kind of doing some reconnaissance on like Hagatha. So I beat her, and then I played her some more afterwards to see if all my conclusions were correct. Like, for example, on turn 6, she drops the what's the guy that buffs the
Stormwind Champion?
No.
No?
He gives a +1/+1 to everything else in the deck. It's the Shaman legendary.
Oh.
It's the Mist Caller.
Yeah,
The Mist
Mist
Caller. Turn 6,
Caller.
almost without fail. Mist Caller on turn 6.
So all the
Wow.
times that you played her, that's
That's
just
the turn
dropped
you
every
need.
time?
Almost,
need to swing
almost 90. I would say 90+% of the time, if not every single
Okay.
time.
That's
You
good
know,
to
things like
know.
that. Yeah, so you can plan on it, which
Interesting.
means that when she drops the Lich King on turn 8, which happens more often than it doesn't, it's a 9/9, and it makes it tough to kill because you get in your hand, like when you start the game off, people who beat her know this, but you get a hero card of Toki, Tess, and Shaw, or not Shaw, Crowley. You start as Shaw, and then those cards, when you play them, all do a board clear, a 3, a 5, and an 8 damage board clear. But when you have a 9/9 Lich King and a bunch of 9/9 Giants and stuff like that, Tess doesn't seem like she does so
it's not
good.
quite enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
So she's meant to be hard. She's meant to be able to do busted things, and because of the hero power, you can't always predict what she's going to have. But if you want to beat her, there's definitely some, like, you can science the crap out of it to the point of where you know by a certain point if you should keep playing the game or if you just should restart it. So, but I played it a lot. I got my card back, and it actually felt pretty good. It felt better than I thought because, unlike I had a tiny bit of the type of angst that Rob had because I was getting frustrated with some of it. But when I beat it, it was like, good times. That was fun. Okay, I'm not doing that anymore. But then I go and proceed to play Hagatha. Why? Because I love our Hearthstone community and wanted to talk about it.
I appreciate it,
So-
and I want to pick your brain so much. Is there anything else, any tips or tricks for like the
Yes.
monster hunt thing itself, or even just
Uh,
Hagatha?
Well, I don't want to. It's hard with the each individual hunter, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
because you don't know what you're going to be offered, and I don't know what your synergies are going to be. You know, some are seem definitely better than others, but because I can't predict what bosses you're going to face and what you've already been picking and yada yada. It's a little bit too many variables. But with Hagatha, it's very predictable because she has the same deck, and you have the same cards. So it is you can at some point in time you can start figuring out like what is the best procedural thing to do. Like for example, it's good to get Toki out early. Why? Because in Toki's deck, she has blizzards and some board clears that you definitely need later.
And so
as you approach mid, and her hero power sucks, so you don't care about that. So you get her out and just to clear a board and to get those cards in your deck so that when she drops a bunch of giants, which she's going to do at some point in time, you can at least stall them out. Otherwise, you're dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing is they give you 3 aura spells for each hero card you play. And one of the cards is like repeat a copy of a spell or recast a spell you've cast. Well, that's a stupid thing to do because you can't control it. And when you're playing, it affects everything. So maybe it's good if you have a Blizzard because it casts it twice. Or maybe if you have a Call of the Wild because Call of the Wild's in your deck. That might be cool too. But if it's a kill command or anything else that could is directional or targeted, it'll oftentimes target your face or target one of your minions. And so that little bit of variable is not worth it. So I figured out that I would pick the Robe of the Magi, which gives all my spells +3. So that way, when I do Blizzard, it freezes them all and does 5 damage. And then usually by that time, I use Tess as the last hero because she has the biggest board clear. And Tess, I always pick the option where it turns your hero power to 1, and you can pick it again. You can do it twice. And very often it would offer board clears up, so I could Blizzard, Tess, pick it, and so I knew I could Blizzard again the next turn or do some kind of AoE or some kind of removal. But that +3 attack just like saves your bacon so many times because you can get rid of the Lich King when he comes back from Hadronox and stuff like that because she does have a Hadronox
now, Grant,
in there.
When you're playing did the discoveries for each of the heroes static, or are they actually ever changing just like the treasures?
No, they are static, and that's why I'm saying there's definitely a strategy to it. It's the same picks each time. You have Crowley, like for example, one of the things Crowley lets you have, he has one where every time you do a cannon shot, it reduces a card in your hand by 2. Well, what happens when you don't have Crowley anymore?
Yeah,
so it's like a trap
long
card.
game.
Yeah, and his offerings, as far as like the aura, they're all aura effects for the most part.
Okay.
They're the worst, but the one I always picked was giving my minions +2 health, so I could trade more, and that seemed to be the most valuable one. There is another one that seems pretty okay, like if you have a weapon and you use it, it just replaces your weapon, so you have infinite weapon damage. But the thing is you lose health very fast in this match. So picking a weapon and base tank and stuff is bad. It's just not a good idea. So it's just better to let your minions be stronger.
Well, it depends on what you're going up against for your other treasures, right? It depends on how the value game is gonna to get you there, because you don't have to play all of your heroes to win. But you can potentially have infinite weapon damage and just save it for when you're hitting the face each turn. That could be valuable depending on the weapon, of course. But knowing how little weapons you have in the deck and how low value they might be, you're not like able to just go infinite with an Arcanite Raper, for example.
Yeah.
So it's just flat out better to have more durable minions that just stick around and are super annoying for Hagatha to deal with.
So you don't get to pick the deck at all for the one against Hagatha.
Nope, it's preset. Everything is preset. The only thing that's not preset is the spells Hagatha gets off of the every time she plays a minion, she gets a spell.
Right.
So now sometimes she does busted things. Like today, I played against her, and she there's a card she has. It's called Amalgamation. It's an 8-cost spell that destroys everything on the board and then amalgamates all their attack and their health together to make like a 21-29.
Oh my gosh.
And now if you can't deal with that or freeze it or something, you lose. And what she'll do is she'll do that and then Ancestral Spirit on it, and then she'll Wind Fury it, and you can't do anything to it. And she'll hit you in the face for 50, like that.
Yeah, so
now,
you just have to
so always hold something in your hand, like just for that specific.
As you start going through the game, the thing is it's kind of weird because like sometimes she'll burn that card because she'll do things. She very foolishly will overload her hand, and she burns cards a lot.
Right.
But that card, there's 2 of them in her deck, and you have to kind of plan for it. The bummer is she also has a bunch of mountain giants and a bunch of other stuff that can get big and out of hand really fast.
Yeah.
So
dump her hand.
which is why I was saying like it's good to get Crowley and Toki out early because they have brawls and blizzards and stuff in your deck to handle it, whereas Tess does not.
Tess
So
is
Tess
save
taking
doesn't
it
have
to
any.
you to the
later?
long game so that you can get them again from her hero
Yes, you
power.
can get them again.
Yeah.
And you have to have cast them and played them in order to get them out of her hero
Now,
power.
quick
So that's
question, Grant. Can
that's
you
sort of the
get
general strategy.
the amalgamation spells if she's played them from Tess?
I have never gotten one.
Okay,
I've never
so
been
it
offered
does,
one.
It does just mean other class then, I would imagine, not.
It
or
might
whatever.
be. Yeah,
It might
it's one of
just
those.
be random.
Well, but I have gotten spells that she casts. So I get offered like I've been offered Volcano because she'll cast Volcano sometimes from. I don't think that's in her deck, but she gets it from her hero power. And what's really useful is Hex.
Oh,
I'm always
yeah.
happy when she uses Hex because I see you have an amalgamation on the board. I will Hex that, please, and thank you. So things like that, I would intentionally like at the beginning of my turn do my hero power twice just so I could get removal and then get a Hex or something like that. Because if you let one single threat get away for more than a turn, you're toast. So
Okay. So clear,
but she's
clear,
very
clear,
beatable.
clear.
The other strategy I figured out today that was really, really fun is I got Toki out, and then I because I picked the hero aura that I always pick is the one that triggers your death rattles right away. That's the one I always pick.
Like
The other
Umbra
one, good
on
one is a
board.
man. What?
Like having an Umbra on board.
Right. I think that the extra mana crystal is actually a trap card, and here's because that's another one that's offered.
Okay.
And the reason and the third one for Shaw is one that offers that heals you and every other friendly minion on the board for +2 health. The mana one I think is a trap because almost always you will get to turn 10 very quickly.
Yeah.
The game
And
goes
then
fast,
it's useless
and then
after
it's
that.
useless. But triggering death rattles never goes away, and that can be useful. So like I had used Toki to clear the board, and then I had put out a I had a good draw. And then I kind of managed the board just right. She didn't get any god draws or anything crazy. And then I cast Ronin because Ronin is in the Toki deck. And I got but remember I picked the Robe of the Magi, so arcane
+3
missiles
damage to all
are now
spells.
Six
six.
damage nukes.
And so I flopped down my Flame Waker and hit her for 18 plus the 6 that he does, so I hit him for 24. And then I played Ronin. And he dies, and I got some more. And then I played Antonidas and played all those spells. And remember now, fireballs do 9 damage.
Yes.
So it was like GG easy. It was so easy. Like it was
Easy
like
clap.
butter, like cutting butter with a hot arcane missile. So yeah. So, but that was a good
Sweet.
way to do it, and I didn't even have to use Crowley. Like, so what Rob said about not having to use all the heroes was right because I just basically just fireballed the crap out of her. I didn't leave minions alone though. I didn't because she has like red mana worms, the kind that like every time you cast a spell, give it 2/2, and they're already buffed because the mist collar's been dropped. Those get out of hand real fast. So I was like, fireball, clear those guys, get more fireballs.
Yikes.
And, so. But yeah, there's definitely strategies to it. I feel like I'm only talking most of the tip of the iceberg. I had all these like notes and stuff that I was chicken scratching out. But yeah, I think if you want to win, I think the best course of action is pick the death rattle, get Toki out and or Crowley out. If you get Toki out, pick the Robe of the Magi, which gives you spell damage. If you pick Crowley, get the buff to the hero power, and then once you get Tess out, you might have to do Tess real early, but Tess is all about the value. So if you can get Tess out, hopefully you've cast some board clears or some hexes, or Hagatha's cast some hexes, and then you just use the hero power, the one getting all that value out of there, because then now you have gas to go into the long game because you're always going to go. You're always going to go at least 15 to 20 turns into the match, even unless she does like a god draw on you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about them making the last boss like a specific deck? And a specific, like, you're going to get this every time so that you could sort of learn it instead of it being completely random like the other ones.
I think you lose a lot of the
that's
flavor.
a good choice.
I
think for the final boss, it might cut down on the frustration because it's something you can learn, something you can figure out instead of being like, every time I go through Monster Hunt, any knowledge I gain from it is kind of out the window because who knows what my deck is going to be like next time when I lose, you know?
Well, the trial and the error is in the building in that stage, and the frustration comes where you may not get the same scenario of cards in order to prepare, but you know it's good, and if you don't get offered that, then you're basically screwed. And then when you get to the final boss, the nice thing is that the bosses generally will do the same thing over and over and over again. The problem is you have to fight through all of them, And sometimes you have the best possible deck to go against the last boss, but then you get matched against Vitus or whatever the werewolf is, and Vitus just eats you. Because your deck is not built for him, it's built for something else. And it's the same scenario of playing on the ladder that makes the game mode more frustrating, in my opinion. And it doesn't matter if it's Toki or if it's Hagatha. You know what I mean? Like, whoever you're playing,
well,
it's the same principle.
I agree with you. I viewed playing Hagatha like a problem that could be solved. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, whereas like playing just the 4 hunters, it was literally like, well, maybe I'll get offered the right things, and maybe I'll pick them right, and maybe I'll dodge a couple bosses that are actually bad for the deck. I feel like it was like climbing like 3 to legend is what it felt like. Like, well, if I get matched up right, then I can do this expediently. Otherwise, it's going to be one heck of a grind. Fortunately, I didn't have to play any of the bosses too many times, or the hunters too many times. But Hagatha, I probably played more than any single one hunter, monster hunter. But I was okay with it while I get angry and frustrated and like, how am I supposed to beat this? Because when amalgamation comes down every turn, you don't have an answer for it. But then I started thinking, well, why don't I have an answer for it? What's the solution here? I'm like, oh, I have to play the hero powers, the hero cards, even if I don't necessarily need them, so that I have the possibility of drawing the option that I need to clear the board.
I wish there was just a checkpoint is all I'm getting at. I think in the Monster Hunt, like once you down 4 bosses, I should not have to go and kill the first 3 guys over and over and over again. That's just like ridiculous. Right. And then on top of that, you should be able to choose like whatever deck checkpoint you want. You just set it.
You're given an option at each deck point, right? So if you skip to the middle, then you don't
just let you build what you want in between. Like if you get to the checkpoint,
that changes the thing entirely, though.
And it makes it more. Like well, it doesn't make it any more enjoyable, but it makes it certainly less infuriating. So it's kind of like you have to mitigate your damage there, and I mean, I'm still not too Hagatha yet, but I feel like Hagatha is like easy mode compared to the other stuff that I've had to been doing.
It is.
So
well, that's why I said I think it's better the way they chose to do Hagatha. I like that. That at least if you get through all of this, you don't have to worry about having, excuse me, another boss like that. This one you can prepare for, you can plan for, you can learn it.
She reminds me a lot of some of the really hard bosses that were in some of the old
Nax.
In some of the adventures, like in Nax, like Chromagus comes to mind. I thought Kel'Thuzad was pretty hard. There's a couple really hard bosses in Nax. There's a couple really hard bosses in Blackrock Mountain that just took me a long freaking time to beat.
Neltharion.
Yeah, and so I mean, but at the end of the day, there's actually a strategy, and you can still kind of like formulate. At least with those guys, you could formulate a deck on your own. Think about what the solution to the puzzle is. Hagatha, they don't give you that option, but there's still a solution to the puzzle, and I think that's what makes it less infuriating in the long run. But we can move on now.
Yeah. Again, at the end of the day, it's still not 8 fights to do 1. That's basically what it is you have to trade the option of getting to fight 8, let alone making it there. And then you have to figure out the strategy. It's just really, really stupid. So anyways, needless to say, you can tell I'm still not done with Monster Hunt. Let's go to Hearthstone news. Every bunny get in here is the Noble Garden event in the Tavern Brawl. It is Noble Garden themed, which is Warcraft's Easter. Eve, you had a couple things on this. Ish. The very different version of the holiday. I had an
interesting conversation with Wicked Good about this over the week, and it was like, Noble Garden is everything about Easter that's not religious.
Pretty much.
All of the commercial side of it, all of the part that is for people who actually aren't Christian and celebrate Easter anyway, that's what Noble Garden is about. Eggs, chocolate, bunnies, all the trimmings, and not like the
It's just commercialism,
Yeah. So that's why they call it Noble Garden. It's about the fun stuff. In World of Warcraft, you find eggs that are hidden around all the starting areas. So any place where if you create a character and your character starts there, those like hometowns will have an Easter egg hunt. And they have tiny little colored eggs hidden around the city, and you can find them and open them, and they have random things in them. You can either get Easter clothing, you can either get little pets, little bunnies, or chocolate, which you can trade in for things that you want. So that's basically the fun. Everyone runs around, looks for Easter eggs.
And it's meant to look like a bunch of children areas, right? So because typically children are the ones that are doing the collecting of these things. So they have you go to the starting areas, which is like your beginner zone.
Mm-hmm.
And they want the people who just start the game to be able to participate in things, even if they aren't high level. And if you put it somewhere far away, then they might not be high level enough to participate. So it makes it a good location. And people run around with like bunny ears on and bunny tails, and it's just funny and silly. This week's brawl, though, I had a tip for the Hearthstone team. I know I have so much experience in making games that I can give them advice, but
should you hold up your sarcasm sign for that? I wasn't clear on what you were meaning by that.
But I do want to say that I wish that everything that came out of the eggs was able to attack that turn. Because having a turn where the egg sits there and does nothing, and then having another turn where the thing comes out and does nothing, that's too slow. Like, at least when the thing hops out of the egg, it would have been way more exciting if you could use it immediately. Because everyone's already prepared for what's coming out. They saw you put the spell on it. They know maybe not what it's going to be, but what abilities it's going to have, whether it's going to have Wind Fury or Divine Shield or Poison. They might not know like exactly what the creature is, but to a certain degree, you could say they could prepare for it if they're worried about the outcome. So if it came out and everything was able to attack that turn, that would make this game so much faster. Every single game that I was in was like a long slog grind.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put this one on my bottom 5 for tavern brawls in terms of enjoyment factors. Like some tavern brawls are just flat out fun, like the one where you put 2 cards in your deck and that's it, and your whole deck is just 2 cards. That's Rob is, for our listening audience only, he just put a big giant like quote mark that said advice in quotation marks. So yeah, it's just, some are fun and some are not. And this was one I was like, please God, let me just beat this now. Just want to beat this now. And I did. I outvalued my opponent because they made some foolish trades when they shouldn't have. And I was like, okay, good. We're going to win here. And the guy ended up conceding because by that time we'd already sat in the game for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
a 15-minute brawl is too long, just saying.
There's no downside to just conceding in a brawl if you're just like tired of it and you don't want to do it anymore because you don't lose ranks or anything. So I find people concede a bit more. But that's the key to this brawl is trading properly. If you know how to trade properly, then you will win every time.
Did you guys talk about the freebies for this already? I had to walk away from the computer.
You get 2 free golden eggs. Golden egg napper and devilsaur egg.
And
so
Willy Wonka's goose egg.
I kept them. I know Grant's going to give me a hard time, but I kept them, and I like golden cards that give you other golden cards. And these do. So
and they see so
value.
much play.
I shall love them and hold them and cherish them and call them my own, and they shall be named George.
Listen, there have been egg decks before. Devilsaur egg and golden egg napper has been in all of the druid, like the quest druid ones too. So I mean, it's not like these two haven't seen any play.
True story. I tell you what, a couple months ago, there was a death rattle sort of hunter on wild that was running devilsaur eggs, and if that got out of hand, they would run it with like Rivendare and stuff like that, and that can get out of hand
that
really fast. It was a pretty cool deck. It never really went anywhere, or at least it didn't get traction in the community. But there was about a couple days stint where I saw a fair amount of it on the like rank 15 to 10ish area on the wild ladder.
Well, I was at rank 5 in wild, and I saw it there. I think the surprise factor works pretty well because you see a hunter and you're like, oh, they're going to be super aggressive, and
give me face.
Then all of a sudden, all these devilsaur eggs start popping out, and it's like, what? No, wait, I wasn't prepared for this. What do I do?
Alrighty, let's get into the Know Your Meta, aka What's the Play. So here, instead of featuring a deck, Grant and I talked a little bit in the pre-show because, for starters, the game has not been something that we've been really focusing on this week outside of the UHL, which I want to meld with this discussion as Eve kind of just touched on it a little bit at the very beginning. But basically, what the meta is or what you're seeing is kind of what we want to cover this week. Basically being that now that we're in Witchwood meta, it is May 12th, U.S. time, in the evening, and 2018. So this is like really, really soon after, but after things started settling down for what decks you're seeing on the ladder and what people are actually playing. So we want to help you identify those things. We haven't really done this in a long time, but basically we want to help you identify, hey, here's a deck. That's a mage. that's a mage. So what is that? Like what are they playing?
How do I know what deck it's going to be with like maybe the first 3 cards they put down?
How they mulligan even.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been a lost art a little bit more so than in like predicting what the class is as it was in the old days against Zoo and like Handlock or Zoo and Reno Lock. But now it's more of when you do figure out what they're playing and you did monitor what they're mulliganing, now you can see, well, if they're playing this deck and they mulligan these cards and they played on tempo like 2 of the cards that they wanted to play on that turn, ideally, then okay, well, they pulled one of these options and they held this card, so this card's probably something they want to play, and blah, 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 blah. So you can kind of go into the thing there and how you win from the mulligan, but not necessarily in identifying what the card class is. So let's start with Druid and work our way down alphabetically, Grant. So talk to us about Druid and what they're playing right now. What are some of the card inclusions? What are some favored matchups for them? What are some favored matchups for you? And how you win?
How can you tell the difference between the two?
Well, let's see here. So let's talk Druid, because Druid is a really popular class right now, and justifiably so, because it's got some really powerful stuff it can do. The 2 kinds of Druid you're more than likely to see on the meta are Spiteful Druid and or Taunt Druid. Well, okay, let me just define them real fast. Spiteful Druid is basically a Druid that's going to try and focus on tempo. It's going to try and get ahead of you with some of its ramp, but really what it wants to do is drop a Spiteful Summoner on turn 6, which then pulls a Ultimate Infestation, which is a 10-cost spell, and then it puts a 10-drop minion on the board. Since the rotation, there are only about, 4 10-drop minions in the game right now? One is like the big giant Emrys, the dinosaur,
Deathwing,
and Tarantus.
And Sea Giant.
So that's 4, and Sea Giant. That's not a lot of choices. That's 5 choices. So you have an incredibly high potential for high rolling.
Oh, Ultrasaur is the other one. Sorry, that's the
Ultrasaur is the 714 one. Yeah, that's the dinosaur one I was thinking of. Yeah, that's still that's a really good body. So they basically, it's a high roll deck. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like what Big Priest used to be. Could it high roll? Except instead of high rolling on turn 4, they can high roll on turn 6. Very frustrating to play against. The question is how do you know what's what? Because Taunt Druid likes to start out the same way. They want to get some ramp. They want to, get to their end game fast, their bigger cards fast, because that's just kind of Druid's MO. Usually you can tell it's a Spiteful Druid based on them playing some smaller minions, because remember, they want to kind of keep tempo. They want to keep you back and do something to keep you busy while they, wait for their Spitefuls. So usually
Spiteful, I think still runs that, what is it, 1/2 that freezes something when it comes out?
You mean a Glacial Shard?
Yeah, Glacial Shard.
They run that. They run Fireflies. That's the thing is Taunt Druid does not run Fireflies. And a lot of times if you see a Firefly,
Glacial Shard or Firefly, then it's probably Spiteful.
And I sillily, like, just because when you play Hearthstone long enough, there's been many Druid decks that have played Firefly. More recently, Token Druid. Token Druid plays Firefly.
Oh, that's the other list that could be on here, to be honest.
It could be, but honestly, I would rather take my gamble on the Spiteful or Taunt, or I'd probably call it Spiteful, because Token Druid is just not common. It's just not very common. And if you're wrong, a Token Druid. Wow, what are the odds?
If you see a certain collection of cards by the second turn, you know what deck it is, if it's Token or not. And the reason is, if you see a card that is like Living Mana, or you see Soul of the Forest, or you see those are like mid-game cards, but it's already too late if you're seeing those cards.
What you're looking for is Call of the Wild.
Call of the Wild and Enchanted Raven. Enchanted Raven is in the Wild.
Enchanted Raven, right? No, that's out. That was a Karazhan card. If you're looking, that's why Token's weird, but you can tell it's Spiteful if you see like a 1-drop card or a low drop minion, and then you see a Wrath. Wrath is a good indication that it's Spiteful. So,
Spiteful doesn't run
I don't remember Wrath at all. They can't run spells.
It's a 2-mana spell.
Oh, you're right. No. I'm sorry. Taunt Druid is the other one. That's what I'm thinking.
Druid.
Keleseth.
Okay,
Yeah. My wires
You see Wrath, you
crossed.
see Swipe. That's not.
If you see any small spells, it's
Any
not
small spells, yeah. There's
spiteful.
no, and that's probably the point we just like glossed over. But if you see only minions and only minions, it's a good bet that
Right.
it's spiteful.
And
Taunt
this is
Druid,
actually not just Druid, because there's been other spiteful lists for other decks. But if you see minion after minion after minion, it's one of two archetypes. It's spells or it's elementals. And the elementals are a lot easier to figure out because it's elemental after elemental, and they're working on their own triggers, and they are not very good at hiding things because they telegraph that they need to be played before you can get advantage out of an elemental effect.
and we can actually roll in like spiteful priest into this list, this mode of thinking.
Mhm.
So if you see a priest and you just see only minions coming out and no spells, like you see them drop let's see, they drop a cleric, right? But then they don't buff it with power word shield, and they don't buff it with power word shield, and you see another minion, like, oh, this is a spiteful list. And then if you see
They
a
have that one that's a 2/2 that buffs
Shadow
another
Ascendant.
minion at
Shadow Ascendant, yeah.
at the end of the turn. That's a big one.
that's
for
a
them.
that's a big tell.
Keleseth
What's
is
the
also
oth-
another big tell.
Mhm.
If they're not running
and
two-drops.
Tar Creeper is the one that you really. Now Tar Creeper's also in Taunt Druid.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, Tar
I mean,
Creeper is
Taunt,
in a
right,
lot of
makes
Taunt Druid
sense.
lists.
Yep.
For Taunt Druid, you're just looking at one. You're going to start seeing like Rotten Apple Bombs. You're going to see Tar Creepers. You're going to see
Ironwood
what's the
Golem.
card that comes off Oak and Summons that they
Ironwood
owe the
Golem.
3/6 Ironwood Golem. You'll see
Ooh.
that. You see those, you know you're against Taunt Druid. In which case, you better start moving, because if they get to their late game and get their stuff up, unless you're like a burst deck that can burst from hand, like over the top of their wall, then you just lose. So you have to kind of to start playing fast.
Okay.
I
let's
know
go to
there's
Hunter,
like a
shall we?
point.
Hunter.
One second. I know there's a point in Warlock where, like, if you silence something, you can stop their game and like not allow them to get further down to their end game. Is there a point in Taunt Druid where you can silence something and throw off their game? Like
No,
a
because their
Hadronox?
Nope.
game is within the ramp. If they're ramping and they're stalling, then they're winning. Unless they're drawing a crap ton of cards, more so than maybe would be normal for that sort of deck. Even against like a control, let's say you're playing Q Block, for example. I don't know why you would be playing it, but it's an option in your toolbox. So if you're playing Q Block and the opponent is playing a Druid and they're running really, really fast, drawing, ramping, tons of stuff, there's also a Togwaggle list that's been running around that you're going to need to be
That's only in
very
Wild,
careful
though.
of. But that's that's more of a wild list. But
That
there
deck is dope.
I'm telling you, I saw it at rank 8. It's there, and people are trying to make it work in standard. It doesn't mean it's good, and it doesn't mean it's common, but it's there, okay?
I believe
So-
you. I believe you.
Is there a way that you can put beasts into their deck so that they don't draw Hadronox?
Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but in case our listeners missed it or whatnot, the way you absolutely disrupt a Hadronox deck, and this is like a hardcore tech, is a shaman can do it by hexing any minion, anything, because
Okay,
now
so it
because
doesn't
remember the
matter what
frog
it
is a
you just
beast.
hex. Okay.
Because what you're trying to do is you can probably deal with one Hadronox, okay, right? You can probably deal with Hadronox coming down dying, and that's fine. But it's the multiple Hadronoxes that are the problem. So what you're doing is you're trying to disrupt the witching hour. It doesn't mean you're gonna, but you can by using the hex. You
have
can
a
use
chance.
when Token Druid was, or not Token Druid, when Taunt Druid was flooding the meta, because when it was the new hotness, people started running Tinkmaster Overspark because he turns something into a beast or either a squirrel or a devilsaur.
And they're both beasts.
They're
right?
both
They're both
beasts. And so,
beasts.
like,
Okay.
it happened to me where he did it. He turned one of my random dirtly minions into a squirrel. And I got to the late game. My haha, witching hour. And little chirpy squirrel came out. I was like, gosh, dang. Forgot about that. And then I'm like, well, I'll cast my second one. And it was like, same thing. I'm like, well, that's game. GG concede. Just conceded, because I had nothing I could do.
Because the first one that comes down increases the odds of the second one being, because that's like more beasts in your pool now.
Yeah, so it was like a 50-50 chance at first, and I just missed it. So that's how you deal with that.
There's
if you
also
can.
a warrior card that was cycling in a lot of the control builds against it, or like a Dead Man's Hand warrior with a bunch of whirlwinds, and they were even running the dinosaur King Mosh, but it's called Cornered Sentry. It's a 2-mana 2/6 with taunt that
Right, it
summons
puts
3/1/1
three
raptors.
raptors.
That's
as
right.
a taunter, and that This card is actually one of the best counters outside of the other stuff because it's
Right.
not just diluting the pool with one beast. It's diluting the pool with 3. So
Mhm.
you have a 25% chance now of getting Hadronox instead of a 50-50.
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Now there's also some mage decks that were running more polymorphs. If they're seeing this, you can see the sheeps. If you're
Yeah.
running mage, you can even be double hate. You can run Tink and you can run a poly, or a Tink and a hex for shaman. Like, you can go mega hate against this deck if you want to in a tournament lineup, and it may be viable. Like, we may see some tournaments where Hadronox Druid becomes a mainstay and it actually becomes the deck that people want to target. That's what
Yeah.
you want. That when you
I can
start
see
seeing
that.
tons of hate cards in tournament play, it's because they're like, I'm gonna lose to every deck except for this one, and I'm not gonna lose, and I'm gonna beat that deck over and over and over and over. And that's why they run tons of hate tech on one deck and not hate tech against the board, unless the board is pretty even and you can't really target something in a tournament lineup. That's what
Mhm.
you will see, generally speaking.
Is Hadronox like Possessed Lackey, where they want to put it down and kill it in the same turn?
Generally speaking, yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking
Yep.
other things could be like Mind Control or Mind Control Tech.
Well,
but
that's
if
where
they're putting
knowing
it down and killing it in the same turn, then that would not
that's
work.
knowing your meta too. Like when you know that some classes can't do anything to you, like you can look kind of like tick through what they would be running or what even they have within their classes options. There are some classes you're like, yeah, you're not gonna do anything to me. Okay, you
Yeah,
can silence it.
Hunter,
It's
I
fine.
can't even really
Whatever.
think of anything Hunter would be able to do to
They can
run your
silence
game
it.
off.
That's about the best they could do.
Yeah.
So it just depends on, like, if you have full health and they silence it, bloody freaking da. If you have a mitt full of hands that can do stuff, you know what I mean?
Rogues with Sap are
like-
gonna really ruin your day too.
Because you can also, like, well, you silence my Hadronox. You know what? I'm just gonna cube that silenced Hadronox, and then I'm gonna kill one of the new ones that come, and I'll kill the cube, and then I'll do stuff to you, so you can't.
Generally speaking,
there's all
it's-
kinds of ways out of it.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's they play Okart or they play Hadronox paired with Naturalize, and that's how they do it. And then you would
Yep.
use Witching Hour into Cube. That's the other kill. So those are
Okay.
your plays. But let's keep
Should we
going.
move
We
on
gotta
to-
get
actually
we gotta get to
seen
Hunter.
this deck, so
We got a
I'm
few more
learning a lot.
classes to look at. Yeah. Hunter. So a Hunter, the ones that I see mostly all the time is mostly Odd Hunter. That's the one you see. And the cool thing about that is Baku shows up and does something to the hero power. So boop, right away, it's
You know
Odd
what's
Hunter.
going on. Yeah.
And
Right.
almost without fail, they're gonna be putting some small minions down. It's gonna be played a lot like mid-range Hunter. Or there are some mid-range-ish builds, but a lot of times they just want to go phase 2 because they can hit you for 3.
Dynamo.
But the reality is I see, maybe it's just a lot of people I've been seeing lately. They seem to either want to play more of a mid-rangey kind of control-y tempo kind of thing, even though they probably are a face deck. Quest Hunter, I have never seen a Quest Hunter on ladder, and that would
There's
be
just
obvious.
a
'cause
Tice
it
build
ticks
that's
down.
been going around that runs Toxmonger. It's actually pretty good. I've seen.
I believe it
played.
because anytime Tice plays a deck and he does any kind of good with it,
the entire
the ladder
meta goes
floods with it.
haywire. Yeah.
So if you start seeing something, just like ask yourself, did Tice play this recently?
Did Fireball play
Because-
this? Did Kibler play this? Those are your
It
questions.
grabs people's imaginations. Like, I always wanted Quest Hunter to work. And so when I heard somebody made a deck and was playing it, I immediately wanted to play it. Because that just,
Yeah.
it
It
sounds
was Quest
fun.
Hunter with the Dire Frenzies in it, and you would play Carnasa
Ah.
and Dire Frenzy the Carnasa, and then you'd have a deck with 60 cards in it, and like 85% of your deck is Raptors that are 1-mana 4/3s that are drawing through your whole deck. So it's like,
Oh my god,
that's cool, Warlock. You've killed my entire board. I'm gonna drop 60,000 4/3s again. Oh, and by
'Cause
the way,
that's how the
Carnasa is
game
not an
works.
8/8 anymore. Carnasa is a 11/11 dinosaur.
Nice.
And when you shuffle 3 more into your deck, you can just play them again. So it's either you're cycling for 1 mana 4/3 reloads, or you just draw your other Carnasa and just do it again. So
all the
stupid.
value.
It sounds
Probably,
fun.
and people have been talking about this, like with the potential for upcoming nerfs, which I guess we're not going to get into that too much today, because honestly, I don't
No.
like speculating. But like
Yeah,
people have
we'll
been
just wait
thinking
and see what
that
happens.
Spell Hunter is being situated to be a pretty good deck. Now, the thing about Spell Hunter is a lot of times they don't really do anything until like turn 3.
I've been
So
playing a ton of it.
really,
And my best setup is secrets right away. So as soon as you see secrets, because if they have a spell stone in their hand,
They
they
wanna
want to get
dump
it ready
'em.
by turn 5. They want to have it like buffed up. So at turn 5, they play all those.
To get 4 wolves.
Yeah. So as
Yeah,
soon as you see secrets going up, Spell Hunter.
And that's the thing it always strikes me about Spell Hunter is they tend to like it's a very swingy deck. You play against them, you're like, why aren't you doing anything? Because you expect like a dire mole or a firefly.
They want you to do
or
something and then they flip it and it's GG.
They do something and it's like you go like, okay, I got my little guys down with my paladin deck. It's like, crap. It's gonna be the 3 cost.
Explosive.
What's the not explosive track? The minion that it's like a 3 cost minion that comes out, and it's like some big giant 3 cost minion that you can't kill, and then they have tempo now, and what's it called? That
Wandering Monster.
Wandering Monster. Yeah, Wandering Monster is proving to be better than I thought it would be. But Wandering Monster or Cat Trick or Explosive Trap or Freezing
Cat Trick's
Trap
gone now.
or
Yeah,
that's right.
gone
Cat
now.
Trick's not
Just
anymore.
Explosive, Freezing, and Wandering Monster is the only spells I have in the deck. I found
those are
it
good spells.
so flexible.
It is.
Like, I didn't know how good it was going to be on ladder, but you have way more late game because once you get Rexar down,
Rexar's
so many
sick.
times I've gotten
Rexar's-
beasts with Rush and Poison and Rush and Lifesteal.
And
and
To My
even
Side
if
is
the board-
proving to be pretty good. Transitional
Even if
card.
the board against you looks like impenetrable, there are so many times when you have options with your beasts. That explosive bat, you give that Rush and Poison, then everything on the other side of the board is gone.
I think the only thing keeping the Spell Hunter down is I think Warlock keeps it down pretty good. Because
Mhm.
if Warlock gets what they want do what they want to do, they can't.
It kind of
the Hunter
depends
can't-
though. Like
can't
if
do
I
it
don't
now.
agree because Warlock is slow enough that Spellhunter can get to Rexar and then start just value every turn value.
Well, Eve, he's talking less about Control Lock and more about the ones that are running Doom Guards
Cube.
and the ones
Doom
with
Guards.
Cube
Doom Guards, yeah.
and Mountain Giants. Those shut you down unless
Yeah,
you
those
have.
Because I agree with
proper.
you, Eve. If it's a Control Lock, like it's a Rin deck,
They're way
yeah,
too
it's just a
slow
little
for
too
you.
slow. It's
Yeah.
way too slow. And
I agree.
and even if they do get up like some Void Daddies early and stuff, usually you have the value to be able to deal with them. But I mean,
And it's
But,
better
like-
now because they can't use N'Zoth, and N'Zoth was kind of like the one thing. If
Yeah.
they have Void Daddy and Rin into, Gul'dan into N'Zoth, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore. But like if they don't have one of those tools along the way for Hunter, you're usually fine. And now they also don't have the Mistress of Mixtures, so it positions you in a much better place, especially if you get really close and then you just draw a kill command. That's game. So it's really nice. Especially if they
We
don't get
do
Gul'dan
run
out
that
super early.
spell that kills a random minion. So if they just drop a giant,
Deadly
they don't have
Shot.
anything else with it.
Deadly Shot. Yeah.
Shot. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
So
a
Deadly
really
Shot's
that-
good.
good card if they just like play the weapon and then
when
they
I
drop a Void Daddy.
draw Rock
Mhm.
Delar, Rock Delar
Rock-
a lot of the times has given me, I believe it's a 7 mana epic with the Crushing Walls,
Yeah, that
Mhm.
thing's
that card's
good.
which
sick.
can really help as well. I've seen hunters like just run that in
Running
their
that card.
Spell Hunter deck.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's getting better. Well, anyways, I
So-
mean that deck is in my opinion is going to be positioned to be pretty strong because it's pretty good now. It's like a 2+ tier. You know what I mean? It's maybe not
Yeah.
quite a tier 1, but it's definitely up there. So
It surprises
guess-
people.
we'll
Okay.
transition into Mage. Mage, the only kind of Mage you're going to really see is right now there's a really aggressive burn Mage that basically is like Secret Mage, but it runs like the Cinder card that does 5 damage.
Cinder
It's like
Storm.
basically Arcane Cinder Storm, which does 5 damage, but they run it just like a regular traditional Secret Mage. It tends to be more face focused. A lot of times you're going to see a mana. If you see a mana worm, that's pretty much what you're dealing with. Like,
Life
boom, okay,
Drinker.
it's Life Drinker, but the Life Drinker doesn't usually show up till later because they want to be putting secrets down earlier. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life Drinker is
Yeah.
sort of a later game spell. We're because we're kind of talking like early stuff, like how to
Mhm.
determine
Mhm.
what we're seeing. Big Spell
Well,
Mage.
Big Spell doesn't have secrets, so if you see a
Big
secret,
Spell,
it's
yeah.
Blast Mage.
They might have in the past ran Ice Block because Ice Block keeps them alive, and a lot of times that's all they need to do. Big Spell Mage, the big tell is elementals. You start seeing a lot of elementals,
Tar
then
Creeper.
Tar Creepers, stuff like that. Stuff that looks like it's meant to just stall, then you know it's big
The
spell.
Arcane Artificer around mid game as well. But again, we're trying not to go too far into detail as far as what
Mhm.
they're doing, because you can kind of go and figure it out and like play it. And also, we don't really have a whole lot of time to go into the ins and outs of each of the decks, but more of like
Yeah.
first 4 turns, what are you gonna see? How do I know what I'm seeing? And then what can I
Firefly?
anticipate they're gonna play? Some of the decks may run Firefly, just not to die to Rogue, I would imagine.
Maybe. Yeah.
But I see the beetles sometimes are making their way into that deck. Fireflies are just
beetles?
generally good in elemental lists because it just gives them the trigger. But that's kind of the only other thing I would say.
They have Jaina, right? The big
Yes.
Oh yeah, you
Yeah.
can't.
But by
live
that,
without Jenga.
but you already knew that was going to happen by the time you.
That's what you signed up
got
for.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So I get Paladin. Honestly,
Is it
the
just
only
odd or even? Really?
There's
really is-
Murloc.
there's
Murloc's the third one.
Murloc, but you know that from turn 1 almost, or turn 1. You see a Murloc,
You
boom,
see
you know
Murloc.
exactly. Yeah, I mean that's just it's almost that obvious. That's obvious. Just no pun intended. Actually, that was pun intended. So odd or even Paladin. Basically, if it's even, they're gonna flood the board, and that's they're gonna be their MO in life. If you don't have board clears, you lose. Odd Paladin can't really stand up to even Paladin in terms of its pacing. It's just too much to do, and they do two similar things. Odd Paladin is actually generally situated better. Odd Paladin does better against Hunter. It does better against Druid, and a lot of other things than even Paladin does. So I think Odd Paladin is actually the better deck of the two, in my opinion.
More
But they're really
consistent.
obvious to tell because they have either Gen or Baku at the beginning, and Vada Boom, Vada Bing.
Yeah, that's true.
Priest.
What if they don't
What?
have either Gen or Baku?
Then they're playing an older build of what was aggro
Dragon
Paladin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trigon
You'll
aggro.
just. But I mean, the things you still bank on the same things. Okay, well, it's Paladin, and they didn't run Abaku or again, so I can expect to see early minions. I can expect to see call to arms.
Well,
Bada boom. That's it. I mean, that's it.
If you're running against Paladin and you don't see Baku, you don't see Gen, and you haven't seen a Murloc by turn 3, then you can expect to see the well played at some point on your side of the screen, and that's a game over because they're not
That's
winning
pretty
that
much
game.
True story. So Priest is the next class. Priest isn't as common as it once was. Basically the way you determine it, like we kind of mentioned earlier.
Sorry, Grant. I need
What?
to back up. The
Oh,
only
sorry.
other option is there is a really janky list that people have been playing for Paladin that is a OTK list that is not odd or even. So if you've seen
like
a
a
lot of like
Death Knight
control
list?
cards that run Uther, you'll actually see like a Panda somewhere late game. They run a Blackwald Pixie and they're just trying to kill you. So
So with the 4 horsemen, that's the
it's
end
a
game?
4 horseman kill. Yeah.
Okay.
So that is
Yeah.
an existing control deck, and it performs really well against control lock. Like
Yeah. Control
Right,
metas,
You just
it's
have to
good.
get the horsemen
Yeah.
out. You don't have to worry about all the void lords and all the shenanigans they run. You just want to get your horsemen out and they're dead.
yeah,
no
unless
matter
they're
what.
running giants and
You'll see a lot of
Doom
cycle.
Guards, there's no problem. Yeah, they'll draw. a
Okay.
ton
You'll see a lot of
cards.
cycle.
And wild
Yeah.
So if
pyros.
you're
It's cycle
confused,
tell. Wild pyros.
then it's the 4 horsemen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
wild pyros and beetles. You know they're trying to kill you after turn 10 sometime. So okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grant. Go ahead.
Element OP Priest. Got it. So we're now Priest. Basically, like we had kind of mentioned earlier, Priest is the way. There's two different kinds of decks. There's more of like a control-y Priest that's gonna kind of try and manage your board via tempo or spells or whatever. Sometimes they use dragons as a means of tempo and control. And if it feels like they're just like they're kind of not doing much, they're just managing your board, you can probably expect them to put some big fatties at the end, probably an Anduin, and you can probably expect to get Master Blast or something or other to the face. That's what you can be looking for. I played games where it's like, man, this priest isn't doing anything. All of a sudden, like, oh, I'm dead. What? They'll Alex you, and then the next thing you know, they've just burst you down. Spiteful is the other one that you can see, and I haven't even seen this very often. But if it's just minions, no spells, you just like wait for turn 6 and they'll drop Spiteful Summoner, and then it'll either pull a Free from Amber, which will be an 8-cost minion, or it'll pull a Mind Control. That deck does really, really good against like Warlocks and stuff because they get tempo better and faster, unless for some reason the Warlock pulls a Skull at Minari and can get Doom Guards in your face really fast. But then again,
That's why
not
I
much.
put an ooze in my deck.
In every
Yeah,
deck.
that's why a lot of people are putting oozes in their deck.
Now,
But that's
Grant,
basically it.
for
Yeah.
the Master Blasta list that we talked about. That one
love that
runs the Mind
Velen.
Blasts and the Velen.
In the Mind Bend, yeah.
There is
lot
also
of
a super weird list that runs resurrection effects. And it does like Firebat was playing this on his thing, and it's
In
basically
standard?
like yes, in standard. Basically, you get it so that there are only like 4 minions in your deck,
Yeah.
and you want all of them to die. and then you charge a spellstone, you res them all, and you mind blast, and they're dead. It's really crazy. I can't remember the exact list. If you want to talk about it, go to Discord, join our channel, go to Coin Concede, talk with Midgame. He was playing it. It's really, really crazy. It's not that amazing, but in a control meta where they're trying to kill your stuff and you drop a Velen and it doesn't do anything, you play like all
I
these
know what you're talking
spells.
about.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's a resurrection
so he
kill
wants
you.
Velen to die.
Yes, and then you
I've
play
lost to that deck
Spellstone,
before.
Smite, Mind Blast in one turn, and they die.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really crazy. And then there's another list that is not killing you with Mind Blast, but is still an OTK, and that is the Void Ripper or a basically double Interfire. What's it called? Interfire Priest, right? So there's that also going around. I've been seeing a couple pros playing that in pocket metas, but it's not very good unless you're seeing specifically a couple things. So the higher you get above rank 5, or once you start playing in the legend ladder, if you're getting there, then those decks may show up a little bit more as like pocket metas start coming up, or rank floors. Right.
We were saying rank floors is just craziness.
But you need to know what win conditions they're trying to do based on what they're playing in the early game. Because you can kind of see some of the minions, and you're like, okay, well, that needs to die. Like, you need to know what their priority targets are for you and what you need to silence. All right, go ahead, Grant.
Yeah. All right, next one, I guess, Rogue. So, Rogue is next. Basically, there's two different kinds of Rogue that are common. Well, there's actually a third kind, but I'll get to that in a minute. The one that's really the hotness right now, never mind how difficult it is to play, is Quest Rogue. Quest Rogue's real obvious. The quest comes down turn 1.
Yep.
If you see that, basically, if you're a control deck, good luck, because you're probably going to lose. It can be beat, but you have to play perfectly, and your Quest Rogue opponent has to have a bad draw.
You have to basically change your entire game plan around.
Most people consider Quest Rogue the control deck killer. Like, is it just control decks can't handle the value and the.
I'm fine with a deck being out there that can beat control. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Quest
stuff.
Rogue hardcore loses to really aggro decks. It is very weak against them. But man, it loses to a lot of decks, but it does so well against control. It's
like Grant was saying, it's got a high skill cap, which generally we're okay with that existing too.
And then the other one that I see that's real common is an odd, like a Baku Rogue, which makes the reason people like it is because it's basically a face deck. Is because you get out of 1 hero power, you get 4 damage, which is insane if you think about it. But it's hard to play. I played A-Bars earlier this month. I played a lot of A-Bars aggro Rogue, and runs like Hench Clan thugs and stuff like that. And it's difficult to Flappy Bird, yeah. So if you see, turn 1, they're going to drop a 1-cost minion like a Firefly or a Dire Mole, and then they're going to weapon on turn 2. You pretty much figure this is a face deck, so what you have to do is survive.
Deckhands and
you have to budget. You have to budget to kill the fledglings and the Hench Clan thugs, and if you don't, you lose.
Well,
if you budget to kill them and you try to hang out, what?
We were talking with Even in the background, right, Grant, when she was playing against this in UHL. She was actually playing against this deck, and there was many times where you kind of get distracted playing this deck or playing against this deck, because they have so many high value things that must die that by the time you get to the mid game, if they have another one, it's over, because you can't deal with it unless you've just walled them out. And if you can't do both killing their stuff and walling them out at the same time, then you're going to world of hurt, because then they just play anything, Cold Blood and or a Leroy on top of that, and it's over. So you need to budget both your health, your removal, and how you block damage, because this deck is, even if it's not a meta shaping deck, it is a very, very popular deck because people like this deck. So
it's fun to hit in the face with a weapon.
Lot. Right, you're going to see the deck a lot. And also, additionally, if you're playing the deck, you need to consider leave your minions alone, use your weapon for minion kills, because you have a lot of initiative with this deck, so you have a lot of health that you can spend in order to get rid of their minions and leave yours out for incremental damage, especially with a Hench Clan Thug. Every point of health that thing has is infinitely valuable.
Oh, yeah. If it gets past 5, it's really difficult to kill if you don't either have hard removal or you don't have a silent. And it's the same way with Flappy Bird. Like you see
Right.
Flappy Bird, if that thing the longer it sits there, the more the game is over for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's why that deck's popular. There are some miracle lists going around that want to run the Fell Striders,
Felderai.
Yep.
Felderai Striders, that are really cool, but they're definitely not popular, and I don't know how they fare in the current ladder.
Rob
Because
is
they
happy
are,
because the legendary one went away.
yeah, they're kind of
Oh, the
slow. That's the
Kingsbane.
thing.
Get out.
Kingsbane's gone.
Yeah, Kingsbane's not around. It's too slow. So okay. Now we didn't put it in here, but Shaman. Well, Shutterwalk, Cricket, anyone? Bueller?
There is
Shutterwalk?
a
I still play
Shutterwalk
it.
Shaman list out there, but it
still
is
play it.
not the one you're thinking of. Shutterwalk Shaman now
More
actually
of like
is
a
more of an
mid-range?
elemental mid-range build with Shutterwalk as your extra win con. You've got other things in the deck that you can do. You don't have to do a specific ordering. You can set up your game plan to order a specific way to get value or infinite value out of the Shutterwalk. But the idea of the deck is not to win with him in every matchup, but rather to win with other things. And so it runs a lot of elemental decks cards. It is also a deck that I watched Abar play a good chunk of and a lot of people experiment with. And the funny thing is a lot of the cards are really close to the deck recipe version of the Shutterwalk deck, which I thought was
Nice.
really funny. But if
That's
you
funny.
see a lot of draw or you're seeing a Shaman that doesn't run like a Gen or a Baku, it's going to be a little bit more of a control mid-rangey build that you need to be aware of, and they will have 0 mana zaps. So you got to be aware that at any point they can zap your guy and take an additional 2 damage plus whatever's on the board. They also run double volcanoes, and when Hagatha's down, all bets are off because every minion they play, you've got to figure out what spell they've got and how they're playing around certain things once they play a minion also will determine it. And that's why they run Fireflies, because when you get Hagatha, you drop 2 crappy Fireflies and the fire elemental that comes out, the flame elemental that comes out of it. And guess what? You've got 2 free spells. So a lot of times when you're playing the deck, it's a different conversation. It's maybe a deck that we might feature next week because I think it's super cool. And I'll probably be playing a little bit of Hearthstone this week and do that for you. And I know Grant has been itching to play something different. So maybe we'll hit rank 5 this week and start playing something different.
That's the plan.
But also, I wanted to bring this back to Priest real quick. I saw Frodan saying, is it Frodan or somebody else on Twitter saying that Big Priest is, in fact, not terrible. So you might see some Big Priest resurgence because pros are talking about something. It may be
Stop talking
something
about
you'll
Priest.
see. But it does, again, Big Priest is very different now. But we got to keep moving. Shaman really only has that and an even archetype that's a very tempo-based thing that runs Bloodlust. So those are the 2 things you want to watch out for. And evolve.
I like the
unstable
I like
evolution.
The even one has giants. That's the thing you have to worry about.
Sometimes.
As soon as they have a big board,
Sometimes
and you
giants.
have a big board, then
Also,
giants.
sometimes giants.
And now the next one, which is the hardest one to pick out, depending on how they play it, is Warlock. Warlock is either going to be cube or control.
Or
if it's
Zoo.
Zoo, yeah, but Zoo is not in the meta. But you can tell it's Zoo right away because if you see a Flame Imp, it's Zoo. Basically, you see a Flame Imp or you see 2-cost minion.
Something
like
that's
a
not a
direwolf.
Kobold Librarian and it's on turn 1, then it's Sue.
Yeah. I mean, because Kobold Librarian, Zoo still plays that card, but yeah, Zoo. And once you know it's Zoo, you'll know it's Zoo by turn 2 or turn 3 at the latest. But with Warlock,
like crazy.
with Cube Lock and Control Lock, I know. Anyways, so it's hard to know the difference because they do run very similar packages.
Doesn't
Control
want to hold a lot of cards in their hand so they can get their giant out? So
It doesn't matter. They're going to draw.
It doesn't matter. They both do it.
just
They
gonna
both
draw.
draw. They both play similar things. They both have the same removal. They all run the same removal. They all run almost the same cards. The big difference is are they running cubes and Doom Guards or not?
Or
Because
giants
Control
is the other
or Giants.
one.
And you can't tell that till later.
You can't tell that, but the
Turn
earliest
4?
you can possibly tell is turn 4. Yeah, at the earliest, and even then, it's not always the case. Like a lot of times, I'll be playing and be like, "Man, okay, this must be a control lock." So I started adjusting my strategy, and the next thing I know, I'm getting hit in the face with Doom Guard. It's like, what gives? There's a fair amount of like fluidity in the lists, so I think people are running amalgamations of the 2, so it's really tricky. One of the things I feel is a good tell, though, is if you see a Tar Creeper. Tar Creeper is a very, very good bet that you're running against a control-only list. Because Cube Lock doesn't have room for Tar Creeper. because it has to put cubes in. And its goal is to try and get demons out, and it wants to manage your board not with minions per se, but with removal.
Now,
Until it can
Grant,
cheat out stuff.
there was a time, I don't know if this is still current, but there was a time I saw a list where they were just basically running the same deck with giants, and some were not running giants, but it's the control giants list. That's also possible, where they just don't run Doom Guards, and they swap them for despicable Dreadlords in order to deal with the early game. But they're still running like Skull of Minari. They're still running other things, but they're like, look, if I get there's so much weapon hate, my Skull's going to die, and I want to play a demon for 5 mana, but I don't want to discard 2 cards, so I'm going to play a Dreadlord and kill their minions if I can, and maybe set it up with, I'm going to play Defile on turn 7 and only do 1 damage to the board, and they're going to laugh at me and say, well played, and then I'm going to drop a Dreadlord and wipe their board. Like, there's that option too.
I could see a world in a control lock where the only demons you run are Void Daddies and Dreadlords.
That's basically what the deck is. Because
why not? I mean, if the meta is running a lot of tokeny, paladin-y, shaman-y kind of decks, why wouldn't you do? Because their win condition is exactly that. Yeah, you're not going to really be able to do anything until turn 5 or 6. So I'm just going to try and burst rush you down.
Ooh.
Yeah, you get them both back, and then you can clear any board they have, and they're toast. So I mean, I could see that, but that's the tricky part about Warlock, is you have to pay very close attention to. Pay attention. You can even pay attention to like what they're mousing over.
If you cube Dreadlords, holy smokes! You just don't even play Void Lords anymore. You're just like, ha ha, 4 damage, like Flame Strike with 4 5s on the board.
Yeah, but it doesn't do it to
I played a game with Odd Paladin the other day, where, bro, I think I killed 4 Void Daddies, and I still won.
Yeah. I
somehow got through that many. I did it. I was just like, how am I doing this? And I could tell the guy on the other end was just like, because he was taking super long with his turns, but I think he was just trying to manage his tilt. But I mean, yeah, it's crazy sometimes what they can do. Yeah. So I guess last but not least, finally Warrior has been showing up on ladder. I've been seeing a little more than I think I had in the last few months. There's a couple different lists that are going around. You're either going to face a Control Warrior, what I call huh?
Your camera.
Is that better? What was I doing?
You were playing with the camera and tilting it up further and further. You're just like
Whoops.
Going into your nameplate. I was just like, where is he?
Where did Grant go?
What you don't know is my floor is sinking. Just saying.
Oh, the floor is lava.
The floor is lava.
The floor. Hey guys, don't touch never mind. The floor is lava. Anyway, moving on. Getting tired. Okay, Control, Rush, or Quest Warrior. Now, Quest Warrior is real obvious because the quest goes dink first thing, and basically you can expect them to try and armor up and like stop you with walls of taunts. The bummer about Quest Warrior is that they can kind of do one thing a turn, and that's what makes it, I think, not very good. It was really popular for a while, because I think people were like, yes, I can do 4 armor and then still have like a cool win con at the end. And then it kind of fizzled out. That one's easy to tell. Rush Warrior is going to have like the Town Crier, but don't be deceived, because there are control lists that run Town Criers, because why? They want to get Crowley or some of their removal, because Control Warrior now, unlike the past, is going to use early minions for their removal to control you. So Rush minions are very, very good for that. So they both kind of do the same things. Control Warrior is going to have a lot of armor. They're going to probably be running Baku because they need that armor. Brawls, that kind of stuff. So if you see you see Baku come out, it's very likely a Control Warrior.
Now, Grant, there is an even warrior that I've been playing.
Oh, yeah?
It's really, really fun. It's a Wallet Warrior. So if you see it...
Oh...
you should understand that the deck is basically just playing Gen and a lot of even lists so that it can Warpath you to death. Okay, so it's going to play a lot of Whirlwind with Warpath. And then it also runs Woe Cleaver. And let me tell you, the deck's not bad with Woe Cleaver. It's the first Woe Cleaver deck since the one that I played out of the gates of the last expansion with Kobolds, where it doesn't feel bad. And
what a ringing endorsement.
And not Grant. Wicked Good and I have been trying to work in a a version of the deck where you can run Dead Man's Hand, so you can just get stuff in there. But basically, you're able to just kill everything. It's really strange, but you can kill so many things because of Blood Razors. You run double Blood Razor, double Forge of Souls, and Gen. So you just know you're in it for the long game. And you know that they're not going to have Reckless Flurry because that's a 3-mana card. And they're not going to have a... they will not have the 5-mana Brawls. But they do have other tools at their disposal. And running all of these weapons seems really, really terrible. But let me tell you, I was very pleased with how this was panning out. So you may see this more. But again, the best thing about the meta for me right now, outside of just what Grant's been saying, is if it's a quest, if it's odd, if it's even, you know what you're playing. Because there's really only one kind of those. And that's a lot of value to help what we call the skill floor, like the base of usefulness of a deck, and or like where people's skill reside is, even if you're an average player and you see Baku coming down or Gen coming down or a quest coming down, you're like, well, I know what's coming. So, like, it's very easy to predict what you should be doing out of the gates in Hearthstone right now, and that, I think, is very, very healthy for us as we move forward.
I can say that.
But anyways, you can continue to talk a little bit more about the control build that you know of. The quest build is a control build, but it has a lot more inevitability, and there are some lists that aren't running odd or even, and they're just control, and they have Dead Man's Hand. That's the other version. So if you don't see
the one I went up
anything,
against in
there's that.
UHL had Elise.
Yeah. But
So
that
you
was an
can get her
odd
pack
that was an
and
odd
get-
version, and he was also running the quest, but he was running the weird quest list because Nate Wolf loves to have fun. So he was playing a really weird list with maximum fun. He played Elise, he played the quest, but he only played like
This is my.
it was one of the decks that I've seen where it's basically Control Warrior with the quest, and it has like 3 or it has let's see, I think it has 5 taunt minions, but all of them generate another
Molten
one.
Blade.
Yeah, he had
a
double Molten Blade. But they
For
all
those
of
of you that don't know what this card is, because nobody plays it ever, it's a weapon that changes into a random weapon every turn in your hand. And that can be and was weapons from other classes.
yeah.
No,
But the deck also only runs like 5 taunt minions, and all of them generate another one. So Direhorn Hatchlings, that represents 4, and then you have another 4 with Stonehill Defender.
It's like secondary win condition. It's like I'm not trying to get to my quest as fast as I can. It's if this game
They're
goes
like,
long,
if this
I'll
game goes long,
eventually
you're
get
dead.
there.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to hit
Which
you.
also
And then it
gives
runs
them the
one Blackwall
option
Pixie,
of-
too.
Which also gives them the option of not playing the quest right away.
Yep.
On turn 1.
Yeah.
So it allows them to,
But he
start
just does
playing
a
the
whole
game
lot of
against it
armor
if it
against the
happens.
deck that Eve was playing.
Get clever, huh?
So much armor.
So let's
Oh
talk
my
about your
gosh. To the
UHL
point where you're
experience and
like,
lore, Eve, and then we'll get out of here.
I think we can probably save the lore because we're kind of going long, I believe.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, UHL. So I played against
Sure.
Nate Wolf, who was a very good competitor. There were some awesome games, some close games. I brought Blast Mage, basically Secrets Mage, I guess you could call it, really aggressive aggro mage. I brought Rush Warrior, which was kind of more like a tempo warrior, I would say, than an aggressive warrior. And then Priest, which was kind of my least comfortable because I hadn't played it in a very long time. And after I was done and Rob went back and watched my VODs, he was like, we need to teach you how to play Priest. And I'm sure that's very accurate.
Oh, the irony.
Because my first game was against his Quest Warrior. His like late game armor up into an infinity warrior. And as my priest, I was just like, okay, all of my removal that's in my hand, Duskbreakers and Primordial Drakes, and he's just not playing anything. He's just tanking up every turn. And like,
He knew
going
that
further and
matchup
further and
really
further
well,
away.
to be fair.
So I didn't even see, because Alex Straza is kind of the win condition here. Well, you put her down and you get your opponent's health to 15, and then you have your hero power from Anduin, and you have your Mind Blast. But if he has 30 armor, Alex Straza does nothing to armor.
Don't matter.
So I just kind of gave up at some point where I was like, that I don't see a way I can win this. And I'm sure there was. I'm sure I wasn't a good enough priest player to see to the end of like a way I could win this game, but I didn't. I couldn't figure it out, and so I lost that first one. But
then the plot thickens.
Dun dun dun.
then it was kind of really important which decks I chose to go next, because I did eventually need to win with that priest in order to win. Like, it was my weakest deck.
But Eve, you came way more
but I
prepared for
had
the
to
matchups this
find
week.
a way. Yes, especially I want to give a shout out to Beef Squatch. Right? Did I pronounce
that's right.
that
Yeah,
right?
you said it
That's
right.
Thank you. Who kind of, and a bunch of other people as well, who reached out to me and said, I heard you needed to practice with somebody. You were saying on the show you had no one to practice with. You can practice with me anytime. So thank you, everybody who offered. And I got a lot of practice in with Beef Squatch. I did think that he was going to bring a Rush Warrior, so we were practicing against Rush Warrior. And then when he brought the Control Warrior, I was like, oh no, now what? What do I do? But
Eve, after the priest deck, you're just like, oh, everything else I play just beats that.
Yeah, that was good. That we did well with that. So I wanted to get to a place where my priest was going to go up against his warlock, because I figured that would be like, my other two decks could do badly against warlock, and I wanted that to be my matchup of priest against warlock. I thought was the best chance, and I did manage to play it kind of at the right time, where I was like, okay, I think odds are good of him playing warlock next turn, because he's already played his rogue and he's already played his warrior, and I was right, thankfully. And that matchup, I was able to pull out my priest win, because I was like,
well, you farmed his warlock 2 games. You beat it with your didn't you beat it with your rogue too?
No, I
thought you, because you played
rogue. I didn't bring rogue. I brought mage, priest, and warrior.
Oh, that's what it was. You switched to
you're
mage
thinking
and
of
you
an
farmed the
earlier
warlock.
week.
You went from priest warrior matchup, then you farmed it because he switched to the warlock, and then you switched to mage and you just dumped on him. He drew nothing. You drew your silences. You drew all your burn. He was toast. And you got rid of the weapon on curve on the
I
warlock.
love the smell of burned warrior in the morning.
And he had to play a Doom Guard out of
Warlock,
hand.
I mean.
And he almost burned Gul'dan.
Yeah, that was when I had the priest against the warlock. I had the ooze in hand.
Well, you had it again in the mage too. You destroyed his weapon in 2 games. It was amazing. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, but I could be wrong.
Mage was against rogue. My mage was against the rogue. That's why
he played the
like
rogue.
He played the rogue. It was a really aggressive game. Like, our healths were both getting down, and we were both kind of going, okay, do I remove his stuff or do I just go face? And so some nail-biting moments of calculating in my head, wait a minute, if he has this card and this card, I'm dead. And just crossing my fingers and praying and hoping he didn't have this card and this card, and he did not. And so I was able to win. But yeah, just a really aggressive, odd rogue and aggressive mage. Yeah. Those were good. And then I think I just surprised him with my Rush Warrior, because I went back and I watched really well shoutcasted by Brasky and Cinder did that, and really great job of casting it. And they were going, what is this deck? What is this Festeroot Hulk? I have never seen this card before. And so I think I had the element of surprise of what card is coming out of her deck next, because nobody plays Festeroot Hulk.
Is that the deck we were talking about, like, super early in the expansion that we were kind of all tinkering with, that Rob was talking about? I played with it for a while because I remember running Festeroot Cults, and we were like, oh, this card's we were debating how good it was in the deck or not.
Yeah, I found a different list though, Grant. This one doesn't run it doesn't run Red Band Wasp. It runs double Arcanite Reapers.
It has no red band. Yeah.
Oh.
And it also has
super
card draw.
fast.
That's kind of the difference in it, is it's not so aggro, it's more tempo, because it has some card draw in it, so you don't run out of steam.
And Eve had like runs, 9 cards for
Acolytes
like
of Pain.
8 turns.
Yeah, it runs Acolytes of Pain, and it has the other one where you draw cards for damaged minions and damaged face. I can't remember.
Gosh golly darn gee wish, throw that sucker in the Discord, and I want to play that. That sounds fun.
I will.
I only got to get I only need to get Golden Warrior, and then classes, and
There
I
you
just
go.
can't bring myself to play warrior. I want a faster warrior deck. So
This is awesome. It felt really good to play, but I have to give a shout out to Ridiculous Hat as well, because he played maybe this exact list or something really close to it the
I got
very
the list
first
from him.
UHL match. Yeah.
mhm.
And beat my face in with it. And I was odd paladin, I believe, or was I even paladin?
I think you're playing odd.
The one that gives you
Because
2.
That's
odd.
Yeah.
Two,
Yeah.
two is odd, which is weird.
Yeah.
Two
You
is
get the
odd.
2 dudes. If you get Bill and Ted coming down on the board, then you're
Fred and George
Then,
Weasley on the board.
Fred and George, Bill and Ted. Frickin' frack. I don't know what you want to call them.
So
So
Beavis
yeah,
and
I saw
Butthead.
that deck and I was like, I need
Beavis and
this.
Butthead.
This is not a slow, painfully slow wallet warrior. This is like a fast, aggressive tempo warrior. I like it, so I grabbed that, and that's what I went with. And yeah, I managed to win. This is my first time. I've gotten pretty close before.
You're growing, Eve. Feels good. We can hear the sounds of you growing, like the trees in the forests in the Lord of the Rings. You can hear them growing.
The best was when Eve was asking us, she's like, guys, I have to play Warrior this week. What can I even play that doesn't run all of these legendaries? And I was like, Eve, you can't play Control, right? She's like, how do you know?
I don't own Garrosh. I don't
Like, I
even
don't-
own Garrosh, so I couldn't run
Yeah.
any of those decks because they
She's
all
like,
have
I can't play
Garrosh
any
in them.
Warrior decks. I was like, Eve, I hear you like to go face. And I sent her that deck.
Legend has it that you like to go face.
Legend has it with the
Don't know where I
Lore
heard
Master
that.
she likes to hit face.
I do.
All right.
yeah.
Anything else, Eve?
It's
People
super
think.
We definitely got to give a
Um,
shout out to Nate for being a fantastic
Yeah.
opponent.
Absolutely. And he brought a bunch of fun cards that were just a pleasure to play against. Like that Molten Blade was inspired. It was so fun. I watched it from the other side later, and apparently he had the option to take Dragon Soul at one point.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Which would have
Because
not
it
have
turned
actually been
into
that
a
bad.
legendary weapon every turn, right? And I was like, oh my gosh.
He had
that could have been
Alaneth
so much
too,
worse.
which was like, nope, definitely don't do
Oh.
that.
That game could have been so much
No.
worse for me if he'd chosen Dragon Soul.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you for being such a great opponent.
He
and now I have to
piloted-
pick 3 more classes for next
Yeah.
week because
He
we've
piloted
reset.
that Warlock list really well. The problem was he drew so poorly on his Warlock, like 2 out of the 3 games he played it. And in those games that he drew poorly was after you had like top decked an ooze into his weapon, like on curve. And I was like, this game is over. Eva's got so much weapon hate in all these decks. And I remember because you were telling me, you're like, I don't have 2 of the Town Criers. And I was like, girl, that's fine. We run in double ooze. We do not want to lose the Warlock. And
Well, they had
boy,
3
howdy, they
weapon
paid
decks,
off,
right?
man. Yeah.
He had Rogue, Warlock, and Warrior, and they all run weapons. So I was like, why
Yeah,
wouldn't I
just
put an
all
ooze
the
in?
oozes. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
tournaments, that's how you can really up your game. Tech is huge. If you know exactly what you're facing, then
Mhm.
oozes are a no-brainer, and silence depending on what you're going up against. And all these tech cards you can afford to put in where you couldn't on ladder, maybe
Yep.
depending, where
Yep.
they might be a dead card in your hand. But if
Poor
you know
Nate.
exactly what you're facing,
Poor Nate. All the oozes, man. You played that deck so well, all things considered. He's like, well, I'm kind of all in. I got to play the Doom Guard or I'm going to die. He's like, well, yeah,
cross my
pretty much.
fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Well, that's going to do it for this week, guys. If you want lore, please, if you're a patron, please let us know what large lore section you would like next. Eve is still working through on our YouTube page, reading through the Chronicle slowly and surely. And
It's a big book.
it's a big book, and there are 2 more. And
Yep.
Whoa.
the next lore section that we have, I believe, Eve, did I upload all of them or just 2 of them? I can't
We
remember.
still
if I
have
uploaded.
Illidan in the vault. Illidan
Okay.
is waiting in the vault.
So I do have 1 more in the vault. I meant to post it this week, but I want to hold it just in case we have an emergency time where we can't post a show like what happened last week. So I gave you double episodes last week, plus we had our Toast the Badger Toast for Toast last week as well. And what
I
was
have
the
had a
other?
request from a patron, which was Gul'dan.
Gul'dan. That's a can of worms, to be sure.
Yeah,
Because there's like
that's a deep,
19
dark place.
storylines with him all overlapping.
Because
with
he's
each of
a
them.
activator character, he activates a lot of the history.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's just kind of
Mhm.
tangentially involved in a
He's
whole
the
bunch of
antagonist
stuff.
of everything.
Yeah, so it's kind of
Mm.
he's got a
He's
finger
almost
in a
as
lot
bad
of
as an old
pies.
god.
And there's two versions of him. There's one that died, and then there's alternate timeline Gul'dan. So he's actually worth 2 lore moments.
I know
Welcome
what
to
happens
Bioshock.
to
I
him.
mean Warcraft.
Alternate version timeline.
Yeah.
Did you kill him, Grant? Did you kill Gul'dan?
I killed Gul'dan. Yes.
Ooh. The plot
You heard it here
thickens.
first.
I'm the
Grant
real
killed
slayer of
Gul'dan.
Gul'dan. I am an epic hero. And I teach band for a living.
His drumsticks
If only
are
the
made
ki-
from the
if only the-
bones of
if only
Gul'dan's
the kids
fingers.
Only the kids knew.
Oh, they would respect you so much more, Grant, if they knew you killed Gul'dan.
I don't want respect. I want fear.
Guys, Grant slays. Okay, Grant just slays. All right, let's keep going.
Slay people.
Um,
Slay bad guys.
so that's what we're looking for is more opportunities for patrons to communicate with us what you want to hear for the lore section because you get them first if they're in long form. And then also for the general community, you can let us know what you want to hear in the short term. And even if they are long-term things, we can let you know. And maybe you guys can talk with Eve, you can talk with me. I can refer some of the things to her. Grant, more than welcome to does the same thing all the time. So let us know if you want like a big topic. Maybe we can say, hey, what do you think about this area of the guy or this area of the girl or the fae or whatever it is, and we'll start working on you with there. But we do have some
Can
new
I
patrons this
piggyback on
week.
that?
Yeah, go ahead, Grant.
Yeah.
Also, people who listen to the show, if there's a topic you'd like us to touch on or revisit or update, please let us know because sometimes we just come up what we think would be good to talk about. But if you have something like, hey, I'd like to hear about, I don't know, like one time we talked about how to know your play style. If we need to revisit that, or we need to revisit like an update on that or something. I mean, that's just an example.
Yeah,
But
I
if
was
you have something
thinking-
you'd like us to go towards, please let us know and don't be shy. We will not heckle you. We will not say, oh no, a bit too bad, because
Sure.
you might give us a great idea. Who knows?
Yeah, I was
We got a
thinking that
lot of
we're
good
long
feedback from
overdue
that
for the episode about talking about goals, Hearthstone goals. I think that's
Mhm.
something that we definitely want to revisit again. Last time I planned on doing it, actually, Andrew decided that's what one of his guests decided that's what they were going to talk about on his show. So I was like, it's probably not good to overlap that within the community. I'd like to have them spaced out so somebody's covering it.
They
here
did a
and there.
good job.
And they did an excellent job. Andrew, of course, is very passionate about Hearthstone goals coming from his roots on our show, as he'll be the first to tell you. That was one of the things that he was really passionate about here and has carried it over. So, and I know that this isn't just a unique concept of Velen's Chosen. This is something that everybody talks about as Hearthstone goals, but maybe not in long form per se. That being said, we have some new patrons. We got Will, Ian, Anders, C. Thank you guys so much for joining. Will, I believe, is on
Thank
the
you so much.
$5 club for getting us to say ridiculous things. So please send those in. I know Samurai Flea and Steve have been conniving, I think, back and forth when I'm not around, likely when I'm sleeping, and sometimes in the DMs of what they want to concoct to get me to say next. But that being said, you guys
But you
can
can
still do
also
that.
ask Grant to say things.
Grant's Innkeeper is far better than mine.
Here's the plan, kids, and I keep saying it. Like my plan, long before Christmas, is to read things in the Innkeeper. I'm gonna read the Night Before Christmas in the Innkeeper voice, or whatever voice you want. But you got to be in the $5 club or more. The other thing is, I will read other religious texts. So if Steve, this is for you. If you have something like, Hanukkah related, like
Yeah.
a story, like the story of Hanukkah, I'll do it in the Innkeeper voice for you, buddy.
Unless it's in Hebrew.
I don't know if
and then
that's
we're
an
screwed.
insult or not. I am not trying to be insulting, but I'm open. I'm open.
Yeah, if
Is
there's
that
something
something
cool.
you would like? Is that what you would be eating?
I don't know. I mean,
I would love something cool for Hanukkah because I'm so I understand
Festival of Lights,
what
baby.
Hanukkah is in a very broad sense. I'm not integrated because my family's not Jewish, so, and I didn't actually grow up around a community of a lot of people that had a lot of Jewish community like nearby, so I'm still really I guess the opposite of inundated, whatever that term would be, isolated, something like that, from Jewish communities. And I always thought that Hanukkah was such a cool holiday and rich in history.
It is a cool holiday.
I wanted to definitely see if we can pay some respects, because last year I wrote some Night Before Christmas poems for Hearthstone and for Overwatch. So I'd love to do something cool that kind of overlaps with everything.
Yeah, that was fun. People are always asking, what should I dust? What should I craft? We usually have an episode like that, around this time. But we're waiting until after
What's
the
up,
nerfs.
the nerfs?
Mhm.
Obviously, we don't want to tell you to craft or dust anything. In
Right.
fact, we actively say, do not craft or dust anything right now. Wait until after the nerfs.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Be smart.
where can people find us?
They can
Fill in
find
the
the
blank.
show on Velen's Chosen Podcast with tag on Twitch. That's our live stream. So twitch.tv/Velen's Chosen Podcast. Twitter, Velen's Podcast. Website, velenschosen.com. If you want to find our Discord community, go to that website, click links, and click the button, and you will find it. That's going to do it for the show. I think if you guys want to find Eve, you can find her reading on our YouTube page or where on
Oh,
Twitter.
yeah. I should add more to that pretty quick. I've been working a lot recently on doing my audiobooks. Deadlines just loom very quickly when you thought you had lots of time, and then you don't anymore. So I've been working hard to try and make sure I get that done before it's due.
Mm-hmm.
But
Where can they find you on Twitter?
Twitter at Loremaster Eve. I do stream now on our Twitch channel here at Velen's Chosen instead of my own channel, so that's where you can find me just checking out Monster Hunt and occasionally laddering. My Battle.net is Loremaster Eve. There's no E in between the T and the R because I had to fit it in. It's too long. Hashtag 1974.
Grant.
Find me on Twitter at WatchmanHS. Battle tag Watchman hashtag 1140. Some of my people in my friends list offered me gold the other day, and I said, yeah, but I had to finish something up, and I did the thing that I've done probably a dozen times now where I forgot to go back to them and say, hey, let's play now. I just forgot. I get really try-hardy sometimes, or I have to go and do something else and I forget. So I'm sorry if you offered me gold this week and I forgot to play you. It wasn't out of ill will or negligence. Well, partly negligence, but I just got distracted.
Not intentional.
Not intentional
Unintentional
negligence. Which is kind of saying the same
Great.
thing. So
We also want to thank our official sponsor of the show from Patreon at PseudoPing. He left his gamer tag in the show notes if you want to go grab that in his Twitch. You can go check him out. In addition to that, you can find me on Twitter with the tag NotRob. And my Overwatch podcast is called Omniclab. And we're actually having some issues with scheduling the last 2.5 weeks. So
it's the best one, you guys.
we're gonna be.
It is the best one.
Podcast.
It is
the best one.
Nobody knows this outside of my other co-hosts, so I'll make the announcement now. But the next show will actually be featuring a top Hanzo player with a new Hanzo rework. We're going to be talking about
hype. Oh, I know what I'm listening
and,
to.
his name is Arge, and he's from Finland, and he's a great.
Oh,
guy.
you got Arge back?
Yeah.
His I was just
accent
listening to
is
the old one.
fantastic. It's so good. It
Yeah.
is my favorite thing in the world, and he's super
Bro is a
flexible,
visionary.
very very nice. He basically told me, he's like, guys, I don't get banned every time I go stream now because Hanzo's meta, lol. So he's really funny. I really like him a lot. So anyways, we'll be doing that this week, and next week we have a very special guest that I'm still trying to make sure we can get, but it's a guest that I'm really excited to have. That is a big streamer, and I'm super pumped. So tease. That being said, before I close the show, there's a very special organization called Con Before the Storm. Con Before the Storm has launched a Kickstarter where they do a meet and greet outside of BlizzCon on the Thursday prior, where people are usually coming in on their flights and setting up their hotel rooms and spending the night, and then they go to BlizzCon the following morning. But normally, they have all kinds of events set up, and this is where World of Podcast kicks in. They have met their goal of making Con Before the Storm a thing. So there will be a con, there will be people, there'll be meet and greets, there'll be an event, there'll be streamers and personalities, there'll be people like Michelle Morrow, there'll be artists like Tepish on Twitter, there'll be all kinds of crazy personalities within all of the Blizzard franchise communities. But what they're trying to do is increase it to their second stretch goal so that for the World of Podcasts, we actually will get a second room that is fully outfitted, much better than it was last year, because Ro mentioned on his show that he would like to have it better equipped than it was prior, because they ran into a lot of hiccups having the majority in one room and only being able to rent out a second room for a very short amount of time. That being said, this is directly affecting our listeners because the World of Podcast community will give us access to the World of Podcast panel where we can relist it on our feed, and it will be an edited thing that I can just list there for you. Now, most of the other podcasts will probably be doing something of the like. I know that Garrett from the Angry Chicken will be there. I know that the Coin Conceit guys are all trying to get there. And I believe Cora is trying to make it to BlizzCon this year. Whether or not that will happen, I'm not sure, but she was not there last year, and I'm really, really hoping I can at least go see her and get a picture this year. I did happen to actually pass shoulders by Brian Kibler when I was there, and also got to shake Ben Brode's hand right before Calm Before the Storm, and I was going on a panel, and it was really, really cool. That's all I could say about the Hearthstone community, because I didn't actually hang out there too much. But if you're going, I will be on one of the panels for Overwatch or Hearthstone. We don't have any of those things planned yet because they haven't met the stretch goal. So please go support it. CalmBeforeTheStorm.com. They have a Kickstarter I've linked in our show notes. And without further ado, we got to close the show. Not all who wander are lost. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Ciao, Bella.
Okay, I'm playing the outro music now. Chat, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know that
By chat, you mean Flea. Hi, Flea. Thanks
Well,
for coming in.
we had about 10 at one point, but people are starting to filter out because it's getting really late. But if you're listening on YouTube, please leave us a like. It definitely helps us out and lets us know that you saw it and you're not just a viewing bot. So it's been great to see you.
You know, all that stuff.
Yeah, our YouTube community's actually been watching pretty regularly. I'm pretty excited about it.
More people know YouTube than know Twitch.
Well, honestly, for me, I like seeing the people I'm listening to sometimes. Sometimes it's way more convenient to just have it in your ears when you're driving to work or whatever, but if I can sit down, I like to see facial expressions. I like to see, the people that I like, in the flesh, as it were. So, yeah, I can see the appeal. I'm glad we got around to it, eventually putting it back up.
Yeah. Dude, Rob, I'm so hyped to hear that Argay's coming back because he's so easy to listen to, despite the fact that he's Finnish. You know,
all right,
and he's a visionary. Oh,
that's a song.
So hyped.
We'll see you guys on YouTube.
Despite the fact that he's Finnish?
No, he's just so freaking good at Hanzo. He has just like genius ideas, like how he was talking about how do you.
We're gonna clip it here, guys. We'll see you on YouTube. Bye.
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 Export.